Welcome to the Retirement Made Easy podcast. I'm your host, Greg Gonzalez. My goal for the podcast is to help you live a better life in retirement by giving you the tools and information you need in a language that you can understand. I'm a financial advisor in St. Louis, Missouri, with clients in about 20 different states. So I get to hear all the questions and issues that people go through that are 50 and older as they're planning for the best years of their lives that they call retirement. On today's episode, I wanted to talk about a phone call that I received this week, and I thought this phone call was absolutely crucial to share with the listeners of the podcast because this listener had gone to a retirement seminar presentation that I did 10 years ago. She's been retired now for about 11 years. And I wanted to share her story. She had so much regret and apologized to me up and down for not taking my advice 10 years ago. And what was so fascinating was that 10 years ago, I remember that presentation, and it is just as relevant today as it was 10 years ago. So you'll be able to learn from the mistakes that a lady made who's now retired, been retired for 11 years, and now she's going back to work part-time. She's going back to work part-time. She's almost 76 years old now, and she has applied for a position as a Walmart greeter. So it's kind of a sad story. Yes, no one wants to be a Walmart greeter in retirement, but I want to share her story of how she got to that point. Before we get into today's episode, I wanted to remind listeners to check out my website, retirementmadeeasypodcast.com. It's a mouthful, retirementmadeeasypodcast.com. There you can listen to previous episodes. You can also check out our free resources, such as my tax planning guide, my retirement secret sauce, and my couple's guide to a dream retirement. Believe me, you'll want to check out the couple's guide to a dream retirement. My business coach and my life coach and I developed that. I spent thousands of dollars kind of developing it. I've received so much positive feedback on that guide. If you're a couple that's nearing retirement, print out that guide, download that guide, and fill it out together. I promise you, it will change your marriage and your life for the next 30 years. I promise you. So visit our website, retirementmadeeasypodcast.com. If you have any questions at the bottom, you can submit your question, and I'd be happy to get back with you. I truly started this podcast and will continue to do this podcast to bring information and to give good advice to people who need it, who are approaching retirement and they want to plan for those golden years and they don't know where to turn to. So if I can help you with anything you're going through as far as your retirement planning and anything you're struggling with, send me an email, go to my website, retirementmadeeasypodcast.com. All right, let's jump into today's episode where I wanted to talk about how to avoid being a Walmart greeter in retirement. And I wanted to start off by sharing the story, this phone call I received from a very, very nice lady, had attended my workshop, retirement seminar, whatever you want to call it. That was about 10 years ago. She was retired for a year once she went to this workshop. And I was talking about retirement planning and what goes into it and the biggest risks that people are going to have in retirement, what to be aware of. And she even remembered, it's been 10 years since that workshop retirement presentation. She remembered my main points of the presentation. It was amazing. And by the way, I would highly recommend, if you haven't listened to episode number 6, it's called The Retirement Story That Everyone Needs to Hear. Episode number 6, check that out. You'll learn more from that episode than anything ever, I think. It's the most important episode in this entire podcast. Check that out. That was kind of the point of my presentation 10 years ago. And the big thing that people don't realize is in retirement, the average age of the American retiree is age 62, and that's based on the figures that we have from Social Security. Social Security says age 62 is the most popular age that someone retires in the United States. Okay, well think about, let's just imagine a 62-year-old couple. How long are they going to be retired? Another way of asking that is, how long are they going to live? So if we have Mary and Michael, a 62-year-old non-smoking couple, what I did is I did the research and I looked at the mortality tables for a 62-year-old non-smoking couple. I'm going to assume they don't smoke. In this country, they're what we call joint life expectancy, which means it's the age upon which the surviving spouse would then pass away. Typically in this country, statistically, women outlive men. Women, on average, live 3 to 4 years longer, depending on what study or survey you're looking at. So if we know the female is then projected to pass away at age 92, for the average couple, we're looking at a 30-year retirement. So what I think it makes sense to do is to look back 30 years to see what it was like back then. So if we look back to 1991, what did it look like? And that was the whole point of my presentation, or the major point of my presentation was, what we need to understand is we're not going to be retired for 5 or 10 years. Most people are going to be retired for about 3 decades if they retire at 62. Okay. So assuming you live 3 decades, you have to understand that every year, everything you buy will cost more. So think about that. What do I mean by that? Every year, everything you buy will cost more. Your Medicare premiums, they're probably going to go up every single year. Medicare Part B tends to go up every year. My prescription prices, they tend to go up. My auto insurance, it always goes up. I've never had my cell phone carrier call me and say, hey, guess what? We're reducing all of our prices and it's going to be 10% cheaper this next year. No, they always raise their prices on me. My grocery bill or eating out, they always seem to raise their prices every year. Price of a stamp, it seems like every year or every other year, they raise the price on that. So shipping, that goes up. So this nice lady that had attended my seminar presentation about 10 years ago is now about 76, I think she said. 10 years ago, she was 66. So she had actually retired a little at 65 the year before, which is a little later than the average of age 62. But she didn't realize it at the time that she was setting herself up for failure because she had her husband's pension. Her husband had a fixed $1,800 a month pension. It did not have a cost of living, so it did not go up and get reset every year for inflation. It would be, if this nice lady lived for the next 30 years, it was as big as it was ever going to get the first year. It never went up. It was $1,800 a month, every single month, for as long as they both lived. So what she said over the phone was that inflation and the cost of living, she didn't realize it back then. She said, but you were trying to tell me during your presentation that, hey, I need to be prepared. I need to be able to fight back against the rising cost of living. And she told me that over the last 10 years, her property taxes, I think she said, are about 80% higher than they were 10 years ago, which I was shocked. It's amazing, but she lives in a nice area. Her grocery bill is a lot more. Medicare, that's also higher at this point. She just went through her entire budget, kind of pointing out that on every different item in her budget, her living expenses are a lot higher than they were 10 years ago when she first retired. And so what she was armed with was a pension that was fixed at $1,800 a month. And then she had her husband's Social Security, her Social Security. Her husband has now passed away. So she just has her Social Security and his pension. And her big mistake was for her 401k. What she did was she invested that very, very conservatively. And what she said over the past 10 years, yes, the market has done really, really well, but she didn't want to ever take any risk with it. So she kept it invested very, very conservatively. And what has happened is it has grown very, very little. And she has drawn income off of that 401k, but it has never grown more than 2% a year. And meanwhile, inflation has just eaten it up. And what she said was living on a fixed income keeps getting harder and harder every year. And what she was trying to say was her husband's $1,800 a month pension, it's going to buy less and less every year as the cost of everything keeps going up. So to offset that, she has had to draw more and more out of that 401k. And at this point, the 401k is growing by, I think she said 0.1% interest because she has it in the stable value, very conservative fund because interest rates are so low. And meanwhile, she's drawing out, I think she said about 9 or 10% of the account value to supplement her lifestyle. So she's essentially drawing that account down more and more every year. So she's got an income problem at this point. So she knows if her account is growing by, let's say, 0.25, and let's say she's taking a 9% withdrawal, that means it's shrinking by 8.75% per year. So that's not good. At that rate, in about 11 and a half years, the 401k is going to be all gone. So as we talked about it more, she's actually applied for a job as a Walmart greeter. She's, of course, not very happy about it because she's there. She's going to be working at Walmart as a greeter, not because she wants to, but because she needs that income, that monthly income coming in to supplement her Social Security and pension. So what can we learn about from her situation and what maybe she should have done 10 years ago? Well, we need to understand that the cost of living, it's kind of like the silent killer in retirement. It's like blood pressure, right? If you never check your blood pressure, you might have some serious health issues. Kind of like in retirement, if you never pay attention to where your money is going and how much you're spending every month and how much the cost of living is going up, you might be in trouble down the road. And there's probably nothing scarier than being 76 years old and realizing that, hey, I'm going to run out of money here if I don't do something different. And sitting right here at 76, it looks like I'm going to have to go back to work. And how long am I going to be able to work? She didn't say anything about her health. I assume she's just going to be working part-time to supplement her monthly income. And she said she's at the point where she can't cut her expenses anymore. So as your costs keep going up and up, you kind of look for areas in your monthly spending where you can cut. And she said, unless I cut back on eating, there's really nothing else that I can cut. So where she made kind of her fatal mistake was she didn't realize at the time 10 years ago that, hey, I need to invest this money to exceed the cost of living. So in other words, if the cost of living is 3 or 4% per year on average over the past few decades, then gosh, I need to invest my money, my retirement savings, so they're at least getting me a return of at least 3 or 4% to keep up with the cost of living. And better yet, if your 401k or retirement savings were growing by 5, 6, or 7%, well, great, then you're exceeding the cost of living increases. Now, in that presentation that she heard 10 years ago, I talked about the bucket strategy. That's podcast episode number 24. That's probably one of the most popular episodes that I've ever done is episode number 24, the bucket strategy. And she brought that up on the phone call. She said, Greg, I didn't follow any of your advice. I didn't listen to you about the bucket strategy and dividing my 401k up into different buckets. But she said the biggest mistake that she made was not listening to me when it came to the cost of living and how that's the silent killer, and that's what crushes people in retirement. So I'm telling you, the listener, that you need to be aware that just because you're retired doesn't mean that the cost of living is not going to go up and up and up. While you're working, you're getting promotions, you're getting raises. That naturally allows you to, maybe you're taking new jobs and that's an income increase. That naturally allows you to keep up with the cost of living. And quite frankly, you don't notice it because you're possibly getting those promotions, new jobs, raises, you're making more money. But when you're retired, it's a whole different ballgame. And people say, I'm retired, I'm on a fixed income. Well, yeah, you truly are. In her case, with her husband's fixed pension, which is the most dangerous income you can ever have, is fixed for the rest of your life. Well, I guess the pension would be okay if your expenses were fixed for the rest of your life. But I can tell you what, my auto insurance and my health insurance, it goes up every single year. You can kind of count on it. So I want to shift gears back to her story. So she's applied for the Walmart greeter job. She's not going there and working there because she wants to. She did say that they might get an employee discount. She was kind of looking forward to that because she does her shopping at Walmart. But I can tell you, somebody that's in their late 70s, maybe in their 80s, whether they're working at a McDonald's drive-thru or as a Walmart greeter, most of those people aren't there because they want to be there. They're there because they need the income. There's a gentleman that's a super nice guy that's out there in the heat pushing carts and getting the carts in at our local grocery store. And I bet he's, probably early 80s. I feel so sorry for him. But he's there because he needs to be there, not pushing carts in 90-degree heat because he wants to be there. So the moral of the story and what you can take from today's episode and the phone call I received is, hey, if you want to make sure that you don't run out of money in retirement, you need to have a plan. So listen to my bucket strategy, episode number 24, and you need to have a game plan, a retirement income game plan that keeps up with the cost of living every year. Because I can tell you, it's going to continue for the next 30 years. If you're 62 and you want to retire in 2021, guess what? In 30 years from now, the cost of living of everything is going to be much, much higher. It's not really going to flatline. We're not going to get into deflation. Everybody talks about that. Prices going down. That's not going to happen, right? In retirement, every year, everything you buy will cost more. Those 8 words will help you so much as you plan for the next 30 years of your life. And hopefully you can learn from that nice lady who called me last week so you don't end up having to apply for a job as a greeter at Walmart. I hope this episode has been helpful. Again, check out our website, retirementmadeeasypodcast.com. We'll see you next week. And remember, always dream big. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, please consult your attorney, tax advisor, or financial advisor prior to investing. This is a hypothetical example and is not representative of any specific investment. Your results may vary. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices mentioned are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. The SmartVestor program is a directory of investment professionals. Neither Dave Ramsey nor SmartVestor are affiliates of St. Louis Retirement Advisors or LPL Financial. There is no guarantee that a diversified portfolio will enhance overall returns or outperform a non-diversified portfolio. Diversification does not protect against market risk. All investing involves risk, including loss of principal. No strategy assures success or protects against loss. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA, SIPC.